What's up, everyone? We're back. I'm Dr. Shah.
Dr. Maxfield.
Welcome to Doctorly Unhinged, where we talk about the latest in skincare and beauty news. We also talk about the state of the business of skincare, which is always very interesting to me now as a Brown founder. But we also go over all the newest products, our favorite products, and of course, our life update. So today, we're going to be going through something unusual because it has nothing to do with the skin, and that is daylight savings time and our hate for daylight savings time and the science behind why we hate daylight savings time. We're also going to be talking about Pamela Anderson, her new no makeup look, and why this is relevant to skincare trends. Finally, CeraVe came out with hair care. What does that mean for the hair care industry? And should you be buying plastic surgery on your credit card with buy now, pay later firms? Let's get into it.
Okay, life updates. For me, it seems like it's always starting script because that is eating up most of my time. The launch inevitably was delayed. So
the relaunch, to be clear.
The relaunch, to be clear. There's just so much compliance that goes into telemedicine that doesn't exist anywhere else, probably in any other industry, except for perhaps brick and mortar health industry. So with that said, just be on the lookout. We are still having some huge changes, new formulation that is going to revolutionize tretinoin. And I've actually given my samples to my staff, those with sensitive skin, and have some positive anecdote from them. Actually, that it's really working, for one. But two, they're tolerating it. And to date, they had not been able to tolerate anything else. So that kind of gives you a tip into what is coming for part of the relaunch. And beyond that, I think that is it for me. Now for you, how are you surviving? How's it going?
All is good, as far as the daughter, is concerned, which we hard launched. So first time I mentioned this was through podcast, of course. And, I also, announced it to everyone on Instagram as well. She's super cute. Every day is a mystery, what it's going to be. Sometimes she wants to sleep during the day. Sometimes she wants to sleep during the night. Sometimes she wants to be awake at night. Sometimes she wants to be awake during the day. You never know what you're going to get. But she's super cute, and every day is a blessing. She does something different or fun or cute. And she really calms down when I hold her. So that's always a good feeling, but she's just adorable, and we're just taking it day by day. But definitely, I sort of understand now why parents always say it's a big time commitment, because, rarely she's just sleeping and knocked out, other than, at night. She's been pretty good about it lately. So, but otherwise all is good in that world. As far as script is concerned, you're going to start seeing it everywhere as soon as this replatform happens. So of course we'll announce it here first, but you'll see it now all over your Instagram feed, your Facebook feed, your TikTok feed. So there's going to be a full on blitz that occurs. And so I'm super looking forward to that going out there. From a remedy perspective, I think by the time this episode goes live, we will have launched bundles for the first time. So we are doing some Black Friday bundles, which are going to be deep discounts. This is going to be the least expensive that you're going to find remedy at, but it's going to be part of the bundles, which makes sense from us for a business perspective, because we're able to offset some of the costs with the bundling effect. So, it's beneficial for us. It's beneficial for the customers. And that's going to be our first intro into our Black Friday discounts. And so that should launch sometime around the launch of this episode. So definitely check it out. You'll be able to get dark spots with body, with lip, and all different types of combinations we put up there. So it'll be interesting to see which ones do best. And so those of you who have been holding out, definitely check it out. And also those of you who are listening overseas, we did launch international shipping. We passed on the cost to the customers. And so if you're listening, the fees may be high. They're higher than I want them to be, but they're the easiest solve for now. And I don't know if we'll be able to bring them down in the future, but hopefully we will be able to.
Nice. Yeah, that's really exciting that it's international. Easily, like you said last week, the number one comment was just, how can I get it in my country? So that's super exciting. Also, for those of you who are going to strap on remedy, two words of caution. One is, I guarantee everything is going to sell out. It's just how it is. Second, before you order in massive bulk, which I would normally recommend, I have 5 to 10 of the same shirt because I know I like it, I would say, remember that skincare does expire. So at most by 6 months worth. and then let everyone else have their fair share. So those are my only 2 tips for those of you who are going to be buying out Remedy this Black Friday. Inevitably, it will.
Yeah, I wouldn't buy more than a 6-month supply of anything for sure. Even if it's discounted, I think it'll be interesting to see, but I think a lot of international shoppers will wait because they'll be able to get the discounts, and then that, will offset some of the shipping costs. So that'll be interesting to see how it plays out. This will be our first sale, so I don't know exactly what it's going to look like yet, but hopefully people are happy with those. All right, so product of the day, what do you got?
Okay, I have 2 products. I had to Google this. This is a rice water toner. I kind of shouted out last time, and it is, sorry for the pronunciation, at House of Dohwa, Dohwa, rice bran toner. That is this product behind me here. And they have an amazing product. The ingredients, because it is not in English, so you have to kind of look it up. Just so you know, it is water, then rice extract is number 2, glycerin, and then a lot of different soothing extracts, willow bark. I mean, and that's pretty much it, allantoin. The whole thing is just a very soothing toner experience. And I actually like a soothing toner when my skin barrier is absolutely disrupted. When my skin is red, irritated, flaky from whatever, I actually like adding a soothing toner. The other one is, maybe I'll save this. This is the best fragrance of all time. I will just leave it there. Maybe we'll talk about it on our gift bundle discussion if we ever get there. But I actually was saying I want to walk by my staff, all of them, no exclusions, just spray it and just this is the advertisement. It's just
what is that one? Azure? You have to say what the name.
I didn't want to say it. I was going to tease it. Oh, fine. Azzaro. This is Azzaro. They're a black one, and it is the most wanted. That's the brand. Oh, the ad would just be spray it and then just, are you seduced? That is it. That's the whole thing. This is the nicest, most amazing cologne I've ever smelled.
So to be clear, the brand is Azzaro and the fragrance is the most wanted.
Yeah.
But you know what I always found interesting? Cologne perfume packaging is always so beautiful compared to skincare packaging. And to be fair, that's because their cost of goods are way lower. So to fill that is $1, but they charge $70, $80 for it. So then basically you're paying for the really cool packaging, but some of the packaging design on fragrances is just phenomenal. They just look insane. I don't know if you've seen Carolina Herrera has this fragrance that looks like a shoe. It's just crazy. Do you remember? It was Jean-Paul Gaultier had that cologne that looked like a body. It was shaped like a human torso.
Oh,
yeah. So they just always have crazy fragrances. Cool. But yeah, that's a good one. The Azzaro one. And then I have a bunch more I could mention at some point. So we'll talk about fragrances, our favorite fragrances. Maybe they can be gifts for people that you love. All right. So my product is the Great Barrier Relief by Crave Beauty. So this is a Leah Hughes brand. And we've talked about the Kayla lot. I'm not going to do it again, but the Kayla Yahoo, whatever product. And this one it's sort of an interesting product because you would think Great Barrier Relief that this is going to be more of a moisturizer. It really is more of a serum. And it's got some Tamanu oil in it, which kind of gives it, I think that's where the fragrance is coming from. It's not a fragrance. It's a very oaty, rich sort of, feels like it came from the fields. I don't know how to describe it. It's it's not a fragrance, but it has almost a food smell to it, I would describe. Very interesting. And I think culturally, I've smelled this fragrance before in my parents' cooking. So I don't know where that scent is coming from, but I quite like it because there's a certain nostalgia about it for me. But it's this sort of barrier repairing oil serum, but it doesn't feel very oily. Dries down really nicely. And it's just such a nice, lightweight gel. And I think a lot of people will love this product. Kind of gives you a nice little glow. It's got some unique blends of ingredients. It's not a new product by any means, but I think it deserves some hype. So it's resurfaced because it showed up on my TikTok feed recently, but I like it a lot.
Nice. Well, that one needs to come back around. It is a good one indeed, especially for this time of year.
All right. So Let's talk about daylight savings time. I have a lot to say. So depending on where you are listening in the world, I'll explain to you what daylight savings time is. So there are 2 times a year. One in which occurred this weekend. And if you're listening to it, it was the weekend before. Basically what happens is we change our clocks. So we set our clocks, I believe they went backwards.
Correct.
So it's fall back. So, let's say it's noon. Now it's 11 a.m. Right? So we change our clocks by 1 hour on a random day. And we call that daylight savings time, which right now we're actually in what we call standard time. And when we move forward in the spring, that will become daylight savings time. So right now we are now in standard time, but we switched our clocks. We switch our clocks twice a year, 1 hour forward and 1 hour back. We go 1 hour back in the fall and we go 1 hour forward in the spring. And I hate it. But let me hear your opinion about it, Dr. Maxwell.
Yeah, I mean, is there anything else to say? It is awful. For me, if it's practical, if you can explain to me the practicality of something or the why behind it, I'll probably give you a pass, or I'll at least be able to see your point of view. But for daylight saving times, it is just completely disruptive. And now you have a youngin', now you have a child, and it takes on a whole nother level for the parent because, yeah, sure, you can change your clocks. You can let yourself sleep in an extra hour, but you cannot communicate that to a young child effectively, that they wake up at their normal time the next day and the next day and the next day and the next day, but they cannot get up yet. And then conversely, it's the same thing going the other way around. So I find this to be an extremely disruptive thing. I think it takes a week for people to adjust. Anecdotally, I feel terrible for the next few days, no matter which way the clock goes. So I do not see a practical purpose. I find it disruptive. I would love to see this disappear. And I don't know of many, if anyone, who feels otherwise.
I don't think there's anyone who feels otherwise either, which is why bureaucracy. So there's this argument, and I think it should be sort of true. It should be harder to make laws than it is to get rid of them. And this is one of those things where it's like a law, or I don't know if it's like a law or what type of, where it falls, the daylight savings time thing, but ultimately it's very difficult to get rid of, despite the fact that everybody wants to get rid of this thing. So, okay. So right now we are living in standard time, which means that the day is shorter, right? The sunlight time period is shorter during standard time. Okay. In the spring, the days get longer, meaning that you're in sun for sort of longer, moves it up. So later night, the sun is still the same. Sun's doing the same thing. But what I'm trying to explain is that the sun is out longer from the spring onward, but now we've moved it up. So essentially you get if you're working if you're working 9 to 5, you get less sunlight at the end of your day around this time of the year. You would anyway, but it's even shorter because of daylight, because of this hour switch, right? And I want to kind of reiterate this because it's something I didn't understand before. We are right now in standard time. I'm going to say this again so that everyone can understand. And in the spring, we'll be in daylight savings time. These are 2 different times, and we kind of refer to it as daylight savings time for both, but we're really living in standard time right now. In the spring, we'll be in daylight savings time. Okay. I'm saying this because there's a really, really, really relevant nuance to this. So everybody wants to get rid of this, and there's a lot of reasons why they want to get rid of this. And I'll just kind of read to you why. Okay. An abundance of accumulated evidence. This is coming out of the Journal of Clinical Sleep Medicine. An abundance of accumulated evidence indicates that the acute transition from standard time, right, which is we're in right now, to daylight savings time incurs significant public health and safety risks, including increased risk of adverse cardiovascular events. So people have more heart attacks during this time switch, mood disorders, and motor vehicle crashes, right? So basically, there is a lot of detrimental health outcomes to daylight savings time and switching the clock forward and backwards. It's detrimental to your health. But to your point, it never bothered me because if you know me, I have a very chaotic schedule. I kind of wake up whenever, sleep whenever. I've always kind of been like that. And I never really had a schedule. Dr. Maxwell's very regimented. So changes in his schedule are easily appreciable. He also has trouble going to sleep. So if you change his clock, it's not easy for him to transition. Now that I have a daughter, it ruined our whole weekend because we're like now trying to put her to bed, and she's like we're trying to put her to bed later, but it's like her, and then now she's trying to get up earlier. So like, to your point, kids don't understand it because it's not biological to have this switch. Like biological is just to follow the same time throughout the year and allow your circadian rhythm to change based on the sunlight and the sun. And we should be following the sun. So ultimately, Marco Rubio, who is a senator from Florida, tried to pass something called the Sunshine Act. And this like saving sun or preserving sunshine act or whatever, passed Senate unanimously. Like nobody disputed this thing. And then it went to Congress, and Congress just didn't vote. Like, sorry, not Congress. It went to like the House of Representatives, and the House of Representatives like just didn't vote on it or something like that. So ultimately it was like never passed into law, but like everybody wants this thing to happen. The problem actually is that the Rubio law is actually that he wants to maintain daylight savings time consistently throughout the year. So he wants the longer after work sun, right? He wants to be the spring time frame, and he doesn't want it to switch. He wants it to be year round. The problem is that the American Academy of Sleep Medicine and all the experts on sleep actually say that standard time, which is what we're in right now, is the most biologically circadian time frame to be in. So the best thing for your health is actually for us to stay where we are now and never switch. And so the law they're passing is actually counterintuitive to what our body actually wants, according to the Society of Sleep Medicine. And so the nuance here is that we should actually stay in standard time, according to science, and never switch. So that's my conclusion and what I've learned, which is fascinating.
Okay, so all right, I'll be honest. So here I'm going to take that one step further from a logical perspective. I think physiologically, it probably doesn't much matter depending whether you stand on standard time or daylight savings time, but society would have to adjust accordingly because you're still going to be up during the same amounts of period of day. The sun is going to be shining for the same amount of time each day. It's just that for whatever reason, I think whether our wake up time and work schedules typically favor the standard time. That's my logical conclusion out of that. However, I will say, and I feel like we're like should be doing this in a debate format, but there's absolutely no counter argument here that you should keep it. So I would say pick one. I honestly don't care. You can pick standard time. You can pick daylight savings time. I will be extremely content with either, although I think I do favor daylight savings time. But just pick one. And I think what's crazy, if I'm not mistaken, it was a bipartisan, like unanimous decision to let it pass through. What was it? Congress, you said? Or Senate?
Yeah, Senate. The Senate passed.
Yeah. When is the last time that's happened? The fact that we could have both sides of our government agree on anything, like even if it was a lunch order, I guarantee you wouldn't have as unanimous approval as it was for the daylight saving time bill, or whatever they called it. And it still died. It still didn't make it through. And I think that is insane how inept, like to your point off camera, like it must be incredibly inept to not be able to move that forward. There's
this is just evidence of like the failure of our government to actually institute change that everybody unanimously wants, but they just can't get it done for whatever reason, right? Like it's just fascinating that like these are the people that we elect into office that are just unable to get something that everybody wants. And like, I do believe that, like, not to be political, that the government is getting less and less representative of the people's desires and needs and wants than ever before. Like we just are so malaligned with what the people want and what the government wants. It's just absolutely insane to me. And there's like nobody that benefits from this continuing, but they continue it anyway. But yeah, again, to the American Academy of Sleep Medicine position statement says, it is therefore the position of the AASM that these seasonal time changes should be abolished in favor of a fixed national year-round standard time, which is kind of just so interesting to me. But the other thing that's interesting to me is that when there's a binary choice between, okay, everyone agrees it should switch, and then we have the choice between daylight savings time and standard time, that the US, of course, chooses to go with the one that is not sensical. And that is another thing I have to say about the metric system versus what do we even call our system? The imperial system. the
Okay.
least logical way to do any type of measurement ever. And like in medicine, we generally use the metric system because it makes a lot more sense. But the imperial system is like the most nonsensical system. So we've decided to choose the one that is not based on science. We've decided to stick with the one. So anyway, it's pretty crazy. But all right, that was a long thing on the daily savings time. Let us know in the comments your thoughts on daylight savings time. If there's any good reason why we should keep it, I'm very curious about this. If anyone has any good reason why they like it. Let's move on to Pamela Anderson's no makeup look. This has been all over the news waves lately. What are your thoughts about this, Dr. Maxwell?
So I find this intriguing. One, it has been everywhere, at least on my feed. Like, it's just constantly Pamela Anderson back in the spotlight. I feel like things have been quiet for her. I think she was famous as an author originally. But the reason I'm fascinated by this, though, really, is because she, I think, was a face of beauty. Like, in her own world, like, she was regarded as beautiful and kind of set a standard for a specific definition of beauty. And then there was probably a quiet period in her career in her public-facing spotlight. And then now she is front and center with a completely different look and still now defining beauty, but in a different way. And I think what caught my attention is, one, it's a stark difference between her full face of makeup and then no makeup. It is a pretty dramatic difference the way she looks. But also, I think whenever I've looked closely, I was like, wow, she actually does look very beautiful in her new way as she kind of embraces this new stage of life. And I do like that. And I think we've seen it with COVID where makeup really fell out. Skincare took the front and center. And now for her, she's just trying and showing what is pretty healthy skin and a much more true representation of what she looks like. And I do like the switch. I do like the switch, and I do like the more, even if it's not complete no makeup, I do like the more subtle, perhaps natural appearance and the embracing of age as we change over time.
I love that. That's beautiful. Yeah, I think, makeup can make you look like a completely different person. And we talked about this before, the effects of contouring, etc. Now, I would say my wife wears makeup like only now really to, big dinners, big events. I would say, let's say 95% of the time she's not wearing makeup. And even when we were in med school together, she also wore makeup very unusually, like only if there was like a class event of some sort, right? And she would always say that people like almost don't even recognize her when she's wearing makeup versus not wearing makeup. Which is just shows you like that there's a huge difference in your appearance with makeup. Now, that's not like a good or a bad thing. So I think probably the most jarring thing about looking at Pamela Anderson before and now is not that, she doesn't look beautiful now or she didn't look beautiful then. It's just that there's a stark contrast between like what you remember Pamela Anderson always looking like, which is like always in makeup. And then now seeing her not in makeup, you're like, whoa, there's a stark contrast between the two. Now, if you had never seen Pamela Anderson before and you saw this picture of this lady not wearing any makeup, you'd be like, wow, this is a very beautiful lady. A lot of natural beauty here. And then you see a picture of her before from, the Baywatch days or whatever days that she was like the most popular or known for, you would say, okay, you would evaluate her from a different perspective and you wouldn't compare the two. But the fact that you're comparing the two, that's where the stark contrast comes into play. And I think it's actually really it's probably exhausting, right? To always have to keep up like an appearance of looking the same way all the time because that's what people expect of you. And you have paparazzi following you around and they catch you on like a bad hair day or a bad skin day or the day that you're not wearing makeup. And they're like, oh my God, look at the way this person looks. And it's like, well, they look like that every day. It's just that you're used to seeing them in full glam, right? Like most of the time we see celebrities and even people, even your friends, think about this, right? Like even your friends that you follow on Instagram, that you've known forever on Facebook, like when they change their profile picture or they upload a new photo, and this is like, I'm talking about personal people who have personal pages, they're putting their best photos up, right? Like they're putting up the best pictures of them. Like even now, like, we just I just posted some photos. We did a photo shoot for our daughter. And my hair is done. Like, I just got my hair cut, I'm in a nice outfit, but like, I don't look like that every day. Most of the days I'm wearing like gym clothes and a t-shirt and whatever. So then if you saw me in the streets, you'd be like, this guy doesn't look the same, right, as he does in this photo shoot, right? But like, I do think that, like, of course, on social media, not just celebrities, but like people who just have private accounts also post the best pictures of themselves with makeup in the best lighting. And so you're also getting a skewed version of everybody kind of at all times. And it's just, you expect celebrities to be a certain way all the time. And then when you see them in a different sort of habitat or wearing different things, you're kind of, it's more jarring to you, even though, they probably look like that on more days than they don't. It's not like the Kardashians wake up in full glam like they do when they do a red carpet, right? So I like this direction. We talked about this on the last episode about sort of how embracing the different stages of your life. And I think it's super appropriate. I think more people should embrace it. And I also think like it will relieve that pressure, right? If every now and then you posted a photo and no makeup, or if every now and then I posted a photo without my hair done, it would relieve the pressure of always having my hair done or always having to wear makeup, right? So I do think that, it would be a burden off not just the people who consume the content, but also you, the individual posting the content, to always have to appear perfect.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I was thinking of that video I posted and you commented like, bro, did you just wake up? And I was like, yeah.
Well, I troll you in all the comments. Do you notice what I put about your Halloween?
Yeah, those are my favorite. Yeah, I actually love those comments.
Also, separately, if you're following on Instagram, like, I'm super proud of my Remedy social content team for dropping their first viral video, which is a big deal. They put together this, they did like a lookalike thing they dressed up as me for Halloween, which I didn't know they would do. And the video went viral, so it's pretty cool for them.
Oh, nice. That's amazing. I actually didn't notice that. That it went that way for them. That is awesome. I love that. But yeah, no, I think the natural look is good. I definitely feel like showing, for me, I'll just say anecdote. For me, I like showing an unprofessional, unkempt side of myself occasionally, because I think there is like a human side, even as a doctor. Even a doctor is human, right? Like, I know there's a different standard that you're held to, and sometimes that alone is difficult to balance. But I do like seeing humans as humans at their worst, not just at their best. But I also completely acknowledge that we want to be put together. And when we want to put ourselves out there, it is also human nature to want to feel your best, look your best before you put something up. So like, you don't have to go out of your way to like take a picture of yourself when you have a cold just to like make other people feel better about themselves. That's not your job, but go either way. It's fine.
Yeah. Right. And a lot of if you see me wearing like a headband in a video, that generally means that I just woke up. That just means I didn't do my hair. So I just throw the headband on, and that's my look for the day. So, so I do like this new wave of like, no makeup look. I like the new wave of like less cosmetic procedures, or at least less overdone cosmetic procedures. So I do think we're kind of heading the right direction. Hopefully find like a middle ground here. I do like the tinted sunscreen look. I think what Dr. Maxfield says is the no makeup look. That tinted sunscreen as foundation base. Like, I think it's nice. You get the protection plus the benefit of hiding a few blemishes here and there. So that's kind of a nice touch. And maybe that's the middle ground for all of this, right? Full glam versus no makeup. We get in the middle somewhere with some light sunscreens or whatever. All right. Next up is CeraVe breaks into hair care with a 5-part collection. Big deal, actually, because CeraVe didn't have hair care before this, and few derm brands do, quite honestly. And they've just launched their first hair care line, which I think was long overdue. Me personally knew this was in the works for a long time. So it's nice to see it finally out there. What I think is good about this, what's cool about this, is that just kind of the skinification of hair. We predicted this like 3 years ago, and we kind of see it having full-fledged it takes a while to make these changes. So I'm sure these brands have been working on this for a long time, especially something like dandruff, which is an OTC product, which means that you have to go through special testing due to FDA regulations. So it takes a while to get out products like this. Now, my complaints about shampoos in general and the hair care space in general is that even some of my favorite products contain a lot of ingredients I would not normally use in like a cleanser or a leave-on product, right? But because there weren't really a lot of options out there, we were kind of stuck with what we were stuck with, and that's fine too. Like for example, like Nizoral for dandruff was kind of like my go-to dandruff shampoo, and it's loaded with fragrances and all types of other ingredients I would otherwise not use. So now that, CeraVe is coming out with their dandruff shampoo, we're seeing a shift towards that the Derm availability of hair care, which is really nice, especially at a mass price point that they're selling at. Now, this is meant to go head to head with Head and Shoulders because the active in this formula is zinc pyrithium. So there's no innovation in the sense of the active ingredient. And there's limitations, of course, in any innovation that you can to an OTC product anyway. But this is just simply a zinc pyrithium based shampoo. So it's not going to be more effective than Head and Shoulders is. They both use the same active ingredient. So if you found Head and Shoulders not to be helpful for your dandruff, this isn't going to be like more helpful for your dandruff. But this is something that doesn't have the fragrances and some of the preservative allergens that Head and Shoulders has, but it has the benefits that Head and Shoulders has. Also, they have ceramides in it, which I was debating whether or not I think ceramides are beneficial for the hair. There's some evidence out there that ceramides can actually help decrease hair breakage. So it is a sensible ingredient to put in this. I haven't tried it. And so when it comes to shampoos and conditioners, I have to try it because performance is so critical to me and my hair and like how manageable it is afterwards. But I do think this is a step in the right direction for hair care and would love to see more from other derm brands.
Yeah, so that is exactly it. A huge knock on the hair care industry is even products that work and work well are often loaded with ingredients that are bad for your skin and scalp, and probably hair too, although the science in hair is way behind. So this CeraVe stepping up and dropping this product is outstanding. Believe it or not, there were few recommendations in that. For like sensitive scalp, sensitive skin. Now, personally, I've loved Head and Shoulders. I actually just did a video for them, which was a funny and ridiculous video to make because I had no hot water. And I might actually post the B-roll because it was absurd, me trying to like look comfortable in a very, very, very cold shower on a very cold day. But like the product I've gone through most probably is the Head and Shoulders Full and Thick. And to your point, it's about kind of that sensorial anecdotal experience. I think a lot of people do make their shampoo, way more than skincare. They make their hair care based off of a lot of personal anecdote because it's just so customizable. Like everyone's hair falls so different. I think it's much more difficult to create a universal recommendation when it comes to hair care. But for someone who is suffering from dandruff and has sensitive skin or has had problems with other ingredients in shampoos, this is stellar. And it's a dermatologist's dream, to be honest, because there were very few recommendations for gentle dandruff care before.
Right. And the Head and Shoulders one also has very limited ingredients in it now. Their newest Bare one, it's like 9 ingredients, right? So we are kind of moving in the right direction. I will say, I think Head and Shoulders owned by Procter and Gamble. I could be wrong on that one. But P&G does a ton of research on the efficacy of their products and specifically their dandruff products. So, it's a great product lineup. But it is interesting to see how CeraVe will compete. And to your point, I completely agree with you about the universal recommendation of hair care products. It's extremely difficult because it really depends on your hair type. How porous is your hair? How curly is your hair? How thin is your hair? Like, if you have really thin hair and you want more volume, you're going to like a different type of product than if you have really thick hair and you want something that is going to, be less frizzy or, whatever. So to your point, like it is very difficult to make universal hair care recommendations. And it's going to be one of those things where you just have to try it and use it. I swear, like I say this over because I've done this Garnier ad, but I swear this Garnier repair system, their bond repair system, and especially at the price point, is just like a phenomenal reset for my hair when I'm trying a bunch of other products, especially like dandruff shampoos that do tend to be a little harsher on the hair. This is like a phenomenal reset. And at the price point, I really do recommend that everybody tries the Garnier bond repair system, because I use the one that the strengthening one. I think it just does so well. But I'd love to hear from people with longer hair what their experiences with it.
That is so funny you say that, because I actually take breaks from my dandruff shampoo too, so I feel like it gets dried out. And then for me, I love the L'Oreal. I was looking it up here. That's where I'm looking. The Elvive line. That's
Is it
like
a bond repair line?
Let's see here. Which one is that? Yeah, that one is good. I do love their bond repair product, but I also like their other one. It's just like a step back. Their
because I believe that Elvive uses the same like technology as the Garnier, which is like that citric acid. I could be wrong, but no, because Garnier and L'Oreal are owned by the same company, they use similar actives, and I believe L'Oreal Paris also has. They also have the citric acid base, but I think it's the citric acid that's making the big difference. So to me, that I think is the biggest benefit. So it's not necessarily like, get Garnier specifically, but I think a citric acid based bond repair system does phenomenally well for like average wear and tear for your hair daily. So get the Redken one, get the L'Oreal Paris one, get the Garnier one. I think they're all going to have similar benefits, but it is a phenomenal reset for your hair, which I never probably appreciated until this year.
Yeah, good call. Also, I'm going to shout out the Vichy one because there's a caveat with it. So I love the Vichy shampoos, like having worked with them for years now and also having gone to Europe. I love their selenium sulfide dandruff shampoo. It is scented. It is not as gentle as the CeraVe one. That's really not where Vichy focuses, other than their Lift Active line, which is probably the one I talk about the most. It is, but it's safe for color treated hair, which is a claim that's difficult to justify for patients. Like a lot of people ask, especially with a prescription ketoconazole, can I use it if I have color treated hair? And the answer is, I don't know, maybe no. But anecdotally, I have a lot of people say it messes with their hair coloring. They claim and have consistently for years that the Durkos line is safe for color treated hair. So that's a huge win. The products that are have launched into America just a few days ago. Anti-dandruff shampoo, selenium sulfide, like I said, their moisturizing conditioner, and their SA anti-dandruff treatment. The one I wanted, though, and I will continue to shout out this ingredient until it comes. I wanted their hair growth to come to the US. And again, it has aminexyl in it, which is not the best studied ingredient. Again, the public-facing studies are pretty weak, but the individual studies behind closed doors I've seen look awesome. Like it works with the anagen phase. I think it'd be a perfect complement for minoxidil. I don't know if they probably just can't make that hair growth claim in the US. I would assume that's why it's not here. And I don't know if they'll ever bring it here. But boy, if I was in Europe, I'd be pairing aminexyl with my Rogaine every day. I think that combination is dynamite.
Well, that's better than what like Nioxin has going for them, right? So, I think there's a lot of people buying hair growth shampoos in the US, which are expensive and probably useless. Versus something like this that actually has some studies, or using a ketoconazole shampoo, which also has some good studies to support it, which we talked about on the last episode as well. So I haven't tried those. I have tried the Durkos, I believe, selenium sulfide one, and it's definitely a good one. And the truth is, there's no reason you can't, and we tell this to patients in the office, and we probably don't reiterate it enough on social media, is that there's a benefit to rotating your dandruff shampoos. One, because a lot of times it's caused by yeast. The yeast becomes resistant. And sometimes just in general, rotating your shampoos, there's benefits to that. So you could use this new CeraVe zinc perithian based one. You get the active of zinc perithian, and then you can rotate it with something like Durkos selenium sulfide or selenium sulfide from Selsun Blue, and then you get the benefits of the selenium sulfide on your dandruff. And so kind of rotating shampoos every now and then can be helpful, especially if you start to see some regression in the treatment of dandruff. Dandruff's been around. We haven't been able to clear it, forever. So there's a benefit to kind of switching up and alternating shampoos for sure.
Yeah, that yeast becomes resistant to the treatment, so it's a way to make it much more effective. And you always get re-exposed to it. That's why it never goes away permanently.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so next up, this is an article coming out of Business of Fashion. I'll read you the headline here, and then we'll just kind of react to it here. Buy now, pay later firms cash in on the plastic surgery boom. Consumers are turning to healthcare lenders and opening new lines of credit to finance cosmetic augmentations and tweakments. So what are your thoughts on this? And what do you think about people taking loans or doing like a buy now, pay later for cosmetic procedures?
I think it's a terrible idea. to be honest, because I mean, unless it's a one-off, and I would say this for most purchases in life, like a house, you got 30 years to pay it off, and then you have to do it again. A car, you better be getting 10 years out of your car, unless you really just have the available cash to spend again soon. But for beauty, I mean, I'm thinking of Botox, 3 months, filler, 3 to 6 months, like, I mean, facelifts, less frequently than that, but lasers, like all these things, except maybe the facelift, have to be done at a short cadence. And so what about your life comes 3 to 6 months later that you can afford it then and double up? You can afford what you were paying previously and afford the next payment. Otherwise, and have it all paid out. You got to have it all paid out at 6 months, because otherwise you're just going to be accumulating these payment plans over this period of time, months, and then it's going to stack unless you're on it. And I just think it's a dangerous trap. Like, honestly, every time I go to a skincare store online and it's like, do you want to buy this, serum or whatever in like 6 easy payments of $7? I'm like, no, if you can't drop $50 on the skincare serum, you should not be buying it. You cannot be paying installments on this type of repurchasable and not disposable, but usable, consumable product. That is not where a monthly payment goes. If you can't afford it at that point, I'm sorry, it's just not for you.
Okay. Yeah, I think with cosmetic procedures is tough, right? To your point, like, let's say that you have a 6-month payment plan on Botox, and now your Botox is worn off. It starts to accumulate, it starts to build up every single time your payment gets higher. And then you're also paying more for it, right? Because, none of these services are free, right? So either they're charging you a percent, or, maybe it's not like a credit card. So what you're talking about is Afterpay, which is like not like a credit card. It's like installments, like, which I guess would be kind of more like, what do you call it? I remember when I was in high school, I bought like a shirt, sweater from like TJ Maxx on a plan like this. I forget what they're called. Layover. It's not layover. It's something that sounds like layover. Layaway. And then like, it's like installments. So like, okay, let's say the shirt's like $100, then you pay like $120 in like 4 payments of $40 or $30, right? So they charge you like a 20% increase, and then they do installments, versus like a credit card where you have like a balance, and then that balance has interest on it. And then the payment on a credit card, which like credit card interest rates are going to be anywhere from like 10 to 25%, you're going to pay way more than like 20% on that installment payment. So that's even worse, right? So over time on a credit card, you pay a lot more than you do on these installment plans. But in general, there's something in dermatology offices offer it, plastic surgery's offices offer it. It's called Care Credit. It's like a credit card to order cosmetic procedures. And I don't know. I think in general, like, one of the things that destroys, families and societies and wealth, and the thing that I think contributes probably one of the largest things to like the wealth inequality in the United States and around the world is in general interest, because interest really takes money from people who have less money and they give money to people that have more money. So essentially every time that you pay interest on something, there's somebody who's lending you that money that's making money. So the disparity gets higher and higher. You're paying more for the cost of goods. They're getting more for everything that you purchase. And it just creates incredible wealth inequality. And so do it as least as possible. When I was in school, like, I would try to only take loan. Like, we couldn't afford to, go to med school without taking a loan, and I couldn't afford to buy a house without taking a loan. But I try to minimize, like, anything interest related. I try to pay off my credit cards in full. This isn't like a finance lesson by any means, but we use credit cards because there's points benefits. There's also like protection benefits for purchases. But I try to pay them off in full if I can every month, just because, I do think that it's one of the quickest ways that you can become bankrupt if you let your spending get ahead of yourself. So especially when it comes to beauty, especially when it comes to skincare, especially when it comes to non-essentials, I would consider it to be sort of a non-essential in some ways, other than maybe sunscreen. Try to make sure that you're not going in debt to be purchasing these things, because I do think, especially like something like a cosmetic procedure, which you may not even be happy with in the end. It's not like you can return it if you're unhappy with it. It's not like a good. Just be cautious about it and try not to do this. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this, but I guess it increases accessibility for people who want access to it. And but to your point, like, will you have more money 6 months from now to pay this off, and that's the hedge you're making? But I've never felt good about those things either, where I get like an ad for something that says, your paycheck is due in 2 weeks. Well, we can give you the money now, but we take a percentage of your paycheck. I know that some people need to do it. I've had friends, family that have needed to do things like that, but it's definitely easy to get into a hole if you pursue those when you don't have to, right? When you don't have to.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think doctors, myself included, we live by this. We took out hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt because you can't pay it up front. Most people, certainly myself, we didn't have the money to repay as we went from a family standpoint. And so you're banking that the whole premise on this strategy, the whole premise, if you're making a monthly payment on anything, is that you are going to be able to pay it off at some point down the road. Or for medical school, you are going to make more 10 years from now. Emphasize that 10 years from now, you're going to make more, so you can pay for your daily living and pay back what you took a loan on in the past. So same thing. You have to be able to pay off what you took a loan on in the past and make your same daily expenses, whatever time period it is that you're looking at this. So maybe I'm kind of passionate about loans. Maybe I think all loans are loan sharks. Maybe I'm against the banks. I don't know. But I just see a lot of people going into debt for this.
No, I've seen tons of people go into debt for this, and it really can really get you in a bad situation. I've had some family members get into some bad situations because they'll give you anything a lot of times. I saw this; it was a lot worse in like 2008 when people would buy like houses they couldn't afford because they could, and the bank would do it with zero down. And then everyone lost everything because of the 2008 financial collapse. And then there was more stringent requirements on getting housing loans as a result of that. But before that, it was really the wild, wild west. Now there's a little bit more rules now, but you can still easily get underwater. And part of the reason why I'm kind of passionate about loans, and we're kind of like in this situation where we have no control over, but the reason why, if you look at the cost to go to school, and that's not just med school, but like also undergraduate college education in the United States has gone up way faster than inflation, way faster than wages. And the reason why it's gone up so much so fast, and the reason why there seems to be no end in sight, is because of loans. So loans, and especially government-backed loans, allow anyone to get these loans, right? Because they don't want to deny anyone access to education. And so the school said, well, if anyone can get these loans, we don't care if people can pay for this or not today. We're just going to keep raising the prices of this. And the government was like, well, we'll keep paying for it, which then really kind of edged out anyone who could pay in cash, right? Like if you could pay cash or wanted to pay cash for school, back when my parents went to school, it was like $1,000 a semester, $2,000 a semester. Now, it's $30,000, $60,000. I think my sister, my youngest sister, her tuition was like $65,000 a year. Who can pay that in cash, right? So ultimately, you have to take a loan. And the reason why the tuition has gone up so much is because the government and the government-backed loans. So, ultimately, we've ended up in this situation where loans actually led to the increase in cost of tuition. And that is a burden on everybody else in society, ultimately. So, yeah, I'm pretty passionate about it as well. Unfortunately, I'm not in a situation where I've paid off all my loans. So hopefully I can get into a position where I pay off my student loans. But yeah, it's a bad system, and I try to use it as little as possible.
You just look at, if anyone wants to take a look at college loans, and we're kind of in the weeds here, but the visuals on this are insane. And I completely agree. The why behind it is exactly what you said. It's crazy. Like this website, just looking off of Google, Visual Capitalist, but it's crazy. The CPI inflation rate is somewhere from 1980 till now, maybe like 100%, maybe 150%. College tuition, 1,250%. Can you imagine the cost of anything else increasing over what is it, 35 years? Wait, 20, 45 years? 45 years. Almost 1,300%.
No,
That is insane.
it's absolutely insane, or absolutely insane, right? So now you have these loans, and then you graduate from college, and you basically just are stuck paying back down these loans forever. We went to medical school, so we were, like you said, we were planning for a day where we would make enough money to pay off these outrageous loans, right? And my loans per year to go to med school were like 65, 70,000 or something crazy like this to go to med school, and I graduated with $430,000 in debt. Now, the only hope was that I could, match into a specialty, work enough years to be able to pay off this loan, especially at like a 6% interest rate or 6.25% interest rate that we're sitting at. You're basically graduating from medical school with a mortgage that you're going to carry forever, right? Or as long as you can't pay it off. And so, we committed with this hope that we'd make enough money one day that we'd be able to stomach or burden that loan. And they even have systems in place that allow it so that during residency in medical school, you don't have to pay it, right? So they just let it sit there and accumulate. It's all set up, right, for our success. But in the end, who actually is making money in the system? And it's the loan back. It's the banks. It's the people who are lending this money, right? Like, think about this. When we took out loans, when you and I were in med school, our interest rate for our loans was like 6%. The Fed rate at the time was like 0%. So the government was lending to these lenders at 0%, and they were making a 6% gain on that money. So like the whole system, they're the ones who make all the money in the end. So it really is just robbing the people who just want to better themselves through education. And, we went to medical school. My roommate in college did not go to medical school, and it took him 6 years to graduate from undergrad. And he had almost like $400,000 or $500,000 in debt undergrad.
Oh my gosh.
And not a degree that, graduated into, a very high income. So, the government continued to like give these loans. Like there was no end. Like they weren't like, you're not actually doing very good in school. Maybe you shouldn't, continue down this path. Like they just continued to lend. So now, what does somebody like that do? Right. And I believe that like bankruptcy doesn't even absolve you of your student loans, is my understanding. So it really is just a bad system. And I really don't see any end in sight. People at the top make all the money. The people who are trying to, take advantage of the American dream, make themselves better, lift themselves up, end up having to pay that all back. So I don't know. I don't love it.
Yeah. And I guess the other part of that too is as the standard of education improves and increases, which is probably a good thing, but like a high school diploma does not mean much in the workforce anymore, whereas historically it did. An undergraduate degree, similarly, because everyone obtains it, now does not mean as much in the workforce as it used to historically. Is it going to be master's degrees in the future? Is it going to be doctorate degrees in the future? And so another huge trap here is that degree that now costs 1,250% more than it used to is also not nearly as impactful or valuable in terms of how it's going to affect your life. And that's not talking about even what kind of degree. It's just the standard is that we all have degrees. And again, more education is good, but people are getting set up in a trap. It's tough.
Oof. Now I'd like to challenge you on something because I'm seeing something happen in real time, and maybe we could check back on this statement 5 years from now. And a lot of you might have tuned out by now, and we'll close the episode after this. I'm actually thinking that people are moving away from this education trap. Because I do believe that, to your point, for a while, especially my parents' generation, especially our generation of people, to your point, in order to get the job, you needed the degree, and you needed more and more degrees to get there. And everybody ended up on like this multiple degree path. But I actually do see now in the world of like global business, and basically there are no borders between where you can do business in the world. I think there are a lot of young entrepreneurs, a lot of people who are very savvy on the internet are realizing that they can learn skills, and those skills don't require them to have a degree, but they can get very, very good about something that they're passionate about. And I see it all the time in people who have found those passions and they don't even use their degree anymore, right? They got some degree in, let's say, I don't know, communications, and then they find out they're really good at setting up internet Etsy stores, and suddenly like they're an internet Etsy entrepreneur. And I think there's going to be more and more of that where people are going to start learning skills that maybe it's, working. They're really good at working with like the new AI systems that are out there, and they get very good at building something around that. Or I'm seeing more and more that degrees, because of what we've seen, are becoming less relevant to work experience and skills than anything else. So this is something that's happening in real time. So I don't know if it's going to be something that's going to be permanent or not, but I'm suspecting that a lot of people are going to start doing this cost benefit analysis of school and say, you know what, I'm just going to learn a skill, get very good at it, and work my way through a company based on the skill. And I actually think that, I think the hiring force will allow for that to happen. So it'll be interesting.
I do too. And I think that a part of that is on the employer. I don't know about you. I've posted job posting recently, and no experience needed. I want to see what you can do though. So I hope more employers actually are more skill based and not necessarily education based to get people out of that trap, because it kind of goes both ways. Additionally though, I definitely think that's the way it goes. I tell everybody, they're like, oh, do you want your kids to be doctors? I say, heck no. Absolutely not.
Really?
I can't imagine.
This is going to be a longer. We're going to have to talk about this at a different episode. Yeah, we'll continue this conversation next time.
All right, we'll pick that up next time. So why do I not tell everyone that I want my kids to be doctors? It's not because I hate what I do. I cannot imagine myself doing anything else. So I'm going to leave that there because I don't want that to be taken out of context.
No. 100%. I love what I do also, but there is the question about, does it make sense to be a doctor anymore? So I think that's we should definitely table that for next week's discussion. So stay tuned for that, because that's going to be a fascinating conversation. And I think it'll give you some insights into what the economics of the healthcare industry look like nowadays. But I do think we're in a direction where probably a lot of people feel like you. But yeah, it's changing times, and I think people are doing that cost benefit analysis, and they're going to come to different conclusions about what the best move is for them. And I think young people have access to new information that they never had before. And to kind of one last thing to kind of offset every argument I made in the past, now that, hired, I wouldn't say hundreds of people, but I've hired maybe tens of people at this point. And I've worked with just phenomenal people, and some have really high education and some have no post high school education. What I've found is this, and this is just one little caveat I will say about your hiring no skill, no experience required thing, is you can get some incredible outliers with that, where you get somebody who far outperforms your expectations. You'll also get people that far underperform your expectations. And so you get massive variation when you do that. And you end up sometimes getting some real winners that just with no skills are ambitious. They work hard, they train themselves, they teach themselves, and they rise kind of like cream of the crop. And then, but your lower end of this can get pretty rough. Whereas like if you get somebody with more education, a lot of times that floor is a little higher. But it doesn't seem to change the ceiling in my mind. So that's been sort of my experience. But hiring is always tough. Like interviews are always tough because some people will tell you everything you want to hear, and then aren't that great when they get there. Some people will tell you nothing you want to hear, and they are phenomenal when they get in the role. And so I've found it very, very difficult to find the right people for the right job. And also like everyone's got different, this is another longer conversation, but everyone's got different motivations, and everyone has different ways to incentivize them, and everybody responds different to criticism, and everyone responds different to incentives. And so trying to find that right package for the right person is really individualized. I think as someone who's hiring people, managing people, you need to be able to identify each individual person's needs and almost make a custom role for them, which is very challenging if you don't have the infrastructure to do so. So, so yeah, I try to be a good boss, but I'm not the best boss for everyone, if that makes sense.
Perfect sense. There's another episode, like how we hire. I think it's very interesting, but it's just like dating. Like it has to be the perfect fit both ways. If I'm not perfect for you, cancel it. If you're not perfect for me, cancel it. It's like very, very person dependent. So super interesting topics, but we'll take
these are good. All right. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And I always read all the comments in the podcast, and you all also have so many life experiences. So would love to hear any feedback from any of you on your life experiences. Stay tuned. We'll see you all next week.
All right. We'll see y'all next time.